I feel like it's one thing to talk about kind of a binary trans issue because we have like a reference point. We have a frame of reference. So like I as a man look at you as a woman and say, "Oh, I want to be that. That's what I feel like. Make me that," right? But we get into non-binary, we lose our reference points. So I could identify, I've heard and seen people identify as aliens, cartoon characters. You know, one person identified as their anxiety. Like that's my gender is my anxiety. Like when you start to get into these type of non-binary identities, you kind of lose that frame of reference. How do you deal with someone at that point?
This is my life's work. I don't know if I could like summarize it so neatly, but what I can say is that there are a lot of people who want to do away with the idea of a gender binary, who want infinite options. And I think some of it stems from our kind of indulgent culture that believes erroneously that more choice is always better. We know that's not true when it comes to happiness. That's why you feel happier shopping at Trader Joe's than Safeway, because Trader Joe's gives you two options for a particular type of product and Safeway gives you 20.
Hmm.
So, I mean, the paradox of choice is real. It's a well-documented, well-understood phenomenon. It sounds like a nightmare to me to wake up every day not knowing if there are four walls around you. And that's what deconstructing gender is. The idea of being gender fluid, for instance. I had just this past week, one of the parents I work with sent me a PowerPoint presentation that their child had made introducing the idea of gender fluidity. It sounds like a total nightmare because in order to function and in order to identify the things in life that we where choice really does matter, we need to be able to take certain things for granted. We need the floor underneath us to be solid. Sex is fixed. It's fixed at conception. Everything in your life is downstream. You know, to be able to make other decisions freely, you need to accept that which cannot change as a fixed point in your life so that you can identify the things in life that are truly fluid. So I think it's absolutely disastrous for mental health to deconstruct that, to make it this like choice that you figure out who you are each day or anything like that. And indeed, what we see is it creates more neuroticism. We see higher levels of depression and anxiety in those people. Why? Because depression and anxiety are pretty much indistinguishable from rumination.
Yeah, I've heard of fawn gender, like a fawn in the
Like a
forest.
deer?
Yeah, I think, uh, I think it's very important that we realize an awful lot of people who are identifying out of the gender are distressed people, vulnerable people who often have other mental illnesses and are often finding it difficult to relate to other people. I think it's very important that we realize that when you cannot relate to other people, you could identify out of being human because you're not really feeling like you belong. So I think it really raises huge issues about the person's feeling of alienation from society, a feeling of not part of things, not part of a community, not part of people. I think, as a psychotherapist or a counselor, it's incredibly important that we don't collude in the client's attempt to be dehumanized because we are fundamentally human. And that's what I offer as a therapist. I offer, the human connection. And if they are putting up blocks to their humanity by identifying out of being human, for example, fawn gender or lion gender or wind gender, there's this new kind of gender where they can shape the wind and Therians. A lot of people are identifying as animals. And I'm like, yeah, that's dehumanizing yourself. Let's look into why you are feeling dehumanized and so alienated from humanity, because that's very distressing. It's a profoundly distressing feeling. The idea that adults and experts are colluding with these deeply distressed people into saying, yeah, you aren't human. Yeah, I'll buy into wolf gender. It's an indictment on anybody who knows anything about psychology, because these people need a lot of help. That's what I would
Hmm.
say. They need a lot of help.
So there's people on like Tumblr or non-binary wiki. There's hundreds and hundreds of these gender identities, a gender tied to anxiety or the forest or demons. There's people identifying as aliens, cartoon characters, wolves, dragons. Do you see any of this in your practice? How do you conceptualize like treating like these type of identities?
Well, I always say
behind these novel gender identities, people are trying to solve a problem or meet a need. And I think there's a metaphor in here that we are missing when we get too focused on the literal manifestations of this. Okay. So the metaphor, I think, is, sometimes I just don't really feel like I fit in with women or men 100%. I'm trying to figure out what that makes me. I don't know if this means I'm still a woman. And I don't really think I'm a man exactly, because I'm looking at you, Ryan, and I'm like, I don't think I'm the same thing as Ryan. But I want to understand this better, and I want to be able to stake something in the ground so that I can stop searching. Like, I think a lot of people are lost. They're searching for something. They're trying to understand experiences that they've had. And frankly, if we were having this conversation in 1972, like, there were no concepts of non-binary gender. So anyone who had that very common experience of not fitting in fully here or here, they wouldn't have really given it a second or third thought. They just would have been like, I guess I don't fit in. Like, I'm an outsider, or I'm eccentric, or like they would have just slapped a different label on it. But if you have that experience now, and you're a Gen Z kid who literally grew up on the internet, and every time you create an app on a gaming platform or whatever, you're asked your identity, you're all of a sudden having to put labels on every minutia of human experience.
I dressed up as a goldfish and I said identified as a goldfish, and I had a therapist talk to me.
I now identify as a goldfish. Please don't use my dead name. My new name is Goldie.
And then the therapist gave me a bowl of water and said, here's your bowl. I won't tell your parents.
You're like deliberately being ridiculous, but I think a question I ask is like, where do you draw the line? Like to us, like laughing here and joking, like that sounds ridiculous, but gender transition for kids also sounds ridiculous. And you start to peel back the layers of some of this especially like non-binary type stuff.
Yeah, I never heard of that before.
Wait, what's that?
I never heard of that before.
Yeah, I mean, you can identify as a wolf or a dragon or, and it's like, if it's my truth, like if actual reality is not the dividing line, then where do you, put that line? Like really, from that, if you're being consistent with that mentality, it's not at all ridiculous for you to identify as a goldfish.
No, it's not. That whole slippery slope thing is a real thing. Yeah, it's crazy.
You're right. We have some sort of model that's understandable for people who, like me, wanted to be the other sex, right? But somebody who wants to be a cartoon character or whose gender is anxiety, there's no reference points. I believe that is a deliberate. I believe that there are influencers who want people to have those types of beliefs because they are destabilizing beliefs. If you believe you're a cartoon character, there's no stability for you. There's reality is no longer a touch point for you, because if you believe you're a cartoon, you're in the wrong dimension, right? If your gender is anxiety, you no longer have a means of, like, this is from the Pixar movie, right?
Yeah.
Where so you're the embodiment of some sort of emotion. If you believe that your social context is that everyone else who's around you is supposed to be the embodiment of some emotion, and you're trying to relate to them that way, it's never going to work out. You're going to be destabilized from that also. But I think that there are a group of people who understand that really well and support creating a class of destabilized people, because those destabilized people have the ability to influence policy and institutions in such a way that is corrosive to those traditional policies and laws and institutions.
So you think there's like a nefarious motive here where people are trying to essentially destabilize individuals in order to destabilize society as a whole?
Yeah, these are intellectual suicide bombers.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know this to be a fact, just as I know that water is wet. Like, some of the first things you learn as a child are what boys and girls are. And The term intersex is really a misnomer. Differences of sex development is a much better term for it because intersex implies that in fact, they are somewhere between male and female. And they may have, sort of differences of their anatomy, but the core definition of what sex is if your body is organized around producing the large versus the small gamete. And that's it. So, and you don't have to be fertile or have ever been fertile or ever have kids or ever had kids to be a man versus a woman. And every person with a DSD is indeed one of the other. And so, I can't remember her last name. Cinema is the runner, was put on testosterone blockers to be able to compete and eventually refused to do so. Problem is that she, was born in a country where they don't have very good diagnostics for these conditions. And so indeed was raised as a woman, is always identified as a woman, considers herself to be a woman, and yet has testicles. And so she does not have naturally high occurring testosterone for a woman. It's because she's genetically male. That's why she has high testosterone. And there's essentially no overlap between the testosterone levels in men versus women. I mean, it's just like this. So it's not even close. So this idea that there's a continuum is like, no, it's just one or the other. And testosterone, anyone who's ever been to a gym in Manhattan has seen the guys that take it. And they take it to get buff. It is a very powerful and irreversible drug that changes the tone of your voice. One of the major irreversible things that can happen if a NATO girl takes testosterone, she'll end up a voice like you and me. And that's permanent. Every time she answers the phone, people can think she's a man for the rest of her life, that kind of thing.
One of the political parties, because I think yesterday was International Non-Binary Day. Great day of the year. One of my favorite celebrations. And one of the main political parties in the UK, the Liberal Democrats, put out something on X saying, we celebrate all non-binary people. What exactly are you celebrating? I don't, this term is so overused now. Like, okay, respect and tolerance is one thing, but celebration? For what purpose? What have these people done that deserve celebrating? But I can see how for a child that would be quite an addictive thing, actually, to get, as you said, that social capital, that recognition, and also a bit of protection as well, because as sure as night follows day, that if someone gets picked on and they're identifying as trans or non-binary, I mean, the bully, they're going to come down on them like a ton of bricks. So in some ways, it kind of makes you untouchable in a way.
I feel like there's a lot of kids who just naturally don't fit into any of the cliques of high school or wherever they're at. And, before we would call them emo or theater kids or band kids, it's just I'm a little different than the jocks or whatever, but I still have my own little thing. But now it's like we have this gender category for what used to be a unique individual.
Yeah. I think that, and it's, there is a lot of instant status and protection that these kids get. I know I work with a lot of parents who have kids who are either on the autism spectrum or otherwise just awkward in some way or another. And they have gained status in their school for self-identifying into one of these categories, because where they were just an odd kid, now they are still maybe odd but special. They have a special identity and a protected identity, and they have school counselors who are telling them how to be advocates for themselves, and they have clubs that they can instantly join. So despite the fact that there's a lot of propaganda in the media about, this is a marginalized group, I think this is a protected status group. And the kids can see that, and they can, if they just identify into it, they're immediately part of this protected status. And even the word queer, that word used to be its own kind of slur, but I've seen a lot of straight kids, calling themselves queer, a young boy and a girl who are, in their teens, and they're both queer and they're a queer couple. Why wouldn't they want to be a queer couple rather than just like, some, boring old straight couple?
Just thought of kind of another theme that kind of goes along with this metaphor, and that is like in our culture, I think it comes from a really good place, but this idea of telling kids you can be anything you want to be, and like let's say I want to be a professional basketball player, but I'm 5'4". Like, you may think you're being kind to that person to tell them to follow their dreams, but at some point the compassionate thing is like, the NBA is probably not going to work out for you. You should probably look for another like career, And I think it's the same thing with like this, follow your dreams, follow your heart, do whatever you want, be whatever you want to be. Like, you can't be the other gender. Like you were born a girl, I was born a boy. Like we're kind of set with that. We should probably make peace with that and do the best we can,
It's true. Yeah, we have to be realistic. I think that's what it is. A lot about the left is they just ignore reality. Like you just imagine what reality is, and we'll just force ourselves to pretend that it is. But in the end, we crash. And yeah, if you really try to pursue that basketball career and that's your only dream, you will crash.
Yeah, it's like the Marxist was like a utopia, a society-wide utopia, and the gender thing. It's like a utopia within my body. I'm gonna kind of surgically and chemically create the perfect body. That it's gonna make all my dreams come true. And it's like just like there's no such thing as a utopian society. You can't build a utopian body either.
No, and it's really transhumanism. It gets really sick and twisted when you really think about it.
Let's go down that road if we can.
Oh gosh. I was just actually researching this because I was thinking about making a post about it, but I don't know if it's just too awful. But there's this meme that goes around. If there's countless genders, why is there only surgery for, why are there only 2 surgeries for male and female? And then I put the comment, I said, that's actually not true. They have non-binary surgeries.
Wait,
do you know this?
What is that?
They have several different kinds. The ones that I'm aware of is one called nullification surgery, which
like
means
a eunuch?
they basically make you look like a Ken doll. This is real. I was just looking up these websites because I was thinking about making a post about it, but I'm also just so disturbed about it that I don't know if I want to go down that.
Oh my gosh.
They also have where I think it's really more for men, where you have a penis and then they'll build like a artificial vagina looking thing, so you have like 2 both down there.
Wow.
I mean, one is not going to work, but cosmetically. And then I was looking at the websites and they say like you can do this, you can do that. It's like pick a genital. It's very weird. Like build a bear.
Yeah.
Build a penis or something.
It's so wild. I mean, I dug a little into the transhumanism stuff before it felt like it merged with gender identity, and it was kind of bizarre type stuff, like putting magnets under your skin to be able to do that, or like just all kinds of just weird stuff to try to merge your humanity with technology in some way.
Yeah,
and
there's that kind too.
Yeah, it feels like Icarus, flying too close to the sun. It's like we don't know what we're doing messing with our bodies like this.
No, and they don't seem to care. There's no thinking about consequences. It's always about needs and wants in the moment.
Yeah. And I think another aspect of it is even if you set someone free to have as many surgeries and as much hormones and whatever else as they want, like it's not fixing people's mental health.
It never is. They pretend it does. And if I think that person, some people would say it does because it usually does for the short term, or they'll feel like they're getting their needs met. It's kind of like getting a high, right? You get your hit and you feel good until you have to get your next hit until you crash. But it doesn't really work. And if you oftentimes people pretend it works, but it never does.
So I always try to understand, like with each individual patient, I really try to get to know them and figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve here? What is the metaphor that you're missing by being so literal? And so like, this is what I kind of hate about gender medicine. If you take this quote, non-binary identity, I know there's thousands of identities, but let's just take this one. When a person says like, I'm neither male nor female, or maybe even they say I'm both male and female. Gender medicine in its absolute idiocy will say, okay, well, perfect. Let's give you a touch of testosterone and like give you some breasts.
Do they really do
Like,
that?
yeah, like Diane Ehrensaft, who is like one of the pioneers of this concept of the trans kid, like she has a paper advocating for, letting non-binary patients choose the medical pathway that best expresses their gender, which is a little bit of both or a either or. And there's surgeons who do phallus preserving vaginoplasty, i.e. keep your dick and get a vagina. Like, this is a thing. Now, these are the fringes. But it's interesting to explore them because this really tells us where do things go when we take these ideas to the furthest extremities. So to me, I'm like, okay, kids are playing around with identities. Like when I was a kid, I used to read the which Friends character are you quiz, and I would take it, but I didn't then go to the doctor and say, turn me into Rachel or whatever. So I think it's normal for kids to be experimenting with kind of kooky, weird identities, but it's a different thing for the adults and the doctors to be like, okay, let's make that for real and forever for you,
But the beginning of the non-binary was, in a way, I remember when I was a kid and I wanted to be a boy. And the question that followed me my whole childhood was, are you a boy or a girl? Everywhere I went, are you a boy or a girl? Are you a boy or a girl? And I hated the question, to be honest. But very often I just answered no, which in a way was non-binary. I reject. No. I often think of that with non-binary. They're kind of throwing their fingers up to the world. They're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, they don't want to be pink. They don't want to be blue. They don't know what they are, but they don't like stereotypical versions of men and stereotypical versions of male and female. So they're rejecting it. And fair enough. You know what I mean? Some people are very feminine. Some people are very masculine. And males are masculine and women who are feminine. God bless them, they're kind of lucky enough to find it easy. There's a lot of people who just find it difficult. Why is it that some boys want to run around wearing dresses? Why is it that some girls are very masculine? We haven't quite figured that out, but they've always been there. There's a small number of them. And if some of them are just going, I don't, like, for example, just to add to the point, a lot of these girls don't feel pretty enough to be a girl. A lot of these boys don't feel masculine enough to be a man. So they don't feel like they're cutting it in a world where they have high expectations. It's a highly sexualized world, and there's high expectations of what it is to be a girl, to be a teenage girl, to be a woman. Equally so for men. They don't like the little kind of wimpy little boy, and he just feels. Do you remember? I remember looking at my brother, who was a little bit older than me, and he was very small. I remember thinking he could never be a man. It's not possible. They're so small and weedy, and I can understand how little boys think I'd never be a man. And the same for the girls. Like never. I remember it felt like so foreign and unlikely. I can just see how these people might just think, I'm out. Non-binary, that's me. I'm out of this race. I can't beat that because I'll never succeed. I'll never be able for it. That's my read of it. I think you could have a lot of psychological readings of it. Any but you really are a wolf spirit and we have to give you milk on a dish on the ground. No, I don't buy into dehumanizing people.
It's like heterosexuality and being cisgender. It's like vanilla, and being anything spicy gives you social capital, it seems like.
Well, and for like the little kids, what I look at, look at those flags. So there's there's the trans flag, and there's the lesbian flag, and the gay flag, and the non-binary flag, and the agender flag. And these are all like colorful flags. The cis flag is gray and white.
I don't think I've seen it. That's hilarious.
It's like so boring. Like, who chooses it? Who would choose that? No one. It's the worst flag. If you're like a little kid and you're like, what am I? What flag am I? No, I'm not that. I'm definitely not that.
Let's go down that road if we can.
Oh gosh. I was just actually researching this because I was thinking about making a post about it, but I don't know if it's just too awful. But there's this meme that goes around. If there's countless genders, why is there only surgery for, why are there only 2 surgeries for male and female? And then I put the comment, I said, that's actually not true. They have non-binary surgeries.
Wait,
do you know this?
What is that?
They have several different kinds. The ones that I'm aware of is one called nullification surgery. which
Like a
means
eunuch?
they basically make you look like a Ken doll. This is real. I was just looking up these websites because I was thinking about making a post about it, but I'm also just so disturbed about it that I don't know if I want to go down that.
Oh my gosh.
They also have where I think it's really more for men, where you have a penis and then they'll build like a artificial vagina looking thing. So you have like two, both down there.
Wow.
I mean, one is not going to work, but cosmetically. And then I was looking at the websites and they say like, you can do this, you can do that. It's like, pick a genital. It's very weird. Like build a bear,
Yeah.
build a penis or something.
It's so wild. I mean, I dug a little into the transhumanism stuff before it felt like it merged with gender identity. And it was kind of bizarre type stuff, like, putting magnets under your skin to be able to, do that, or like just all kinds of just weird stuff to try to merge your humanity with technology in some way.
Yeah,
and
there's
it feels
that
like,
kind too, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like Icarus, flying too close to the sun. It's like, we don't know what we're doing messing with our bodies like this.
No, and they don't seem to care. There's no thinking about consequences. It's always about needs and wants in the moment.
Yeah. And I think another aspect of it is, even if you set someone free to have as many surgeries and as much hormones and whatever else as they want, like it's not fixing people's mental health.
Mm-mm. It never is. They pretend it does. And if I think that person, some people would say it does because it usually does for the short term, or they'll feel like they're getting their needs met. It's kind of like getting a high, right? You get your hit and you feel good until you have to get your next hit until you crash. But it doesn't really work. And if oftentimes people pretend it works, but it never does.
Man, I want to